The date was June 16, 2023. An ordinary neighborhood situated on Cleveland, Ohio's west side became the setting for an unthinkable act. Kristel Candelario, a 31-year-old mother, returned from a 10-day getaway to an unimaginable horror within her own residence. Her 16-month-old daughter was discovered in a gravely neglected state. The child's condition was so critical that it left emergency responders speechless and moved seasoned investigators to tears as the inquiry unfolded. The subsequent investigation revealed a truly shocking sequence of events that culminated in such extreme neglect. This presentation will delve into the specifics of the Candelario tragedy and grapple with the deeply troubling question that continues to resonate with everyone involved. How could such a defenseless infant become a victim of what a judge termed the ultimate betrayal, and why?
Leaving your baby terrified, alone, unprotected, to suffer what I heard was the most gruesome death imaginable.
Leading the investigation was Detective T. Powell from the Cleveland Police Homicide Unit, a veteran officer with 17 years on the force, including a decade as a detective, who described this as the most profoundly disturbing case he had ever encountered. Kristel Candelario, born on September 11, 1991, was a 32-year-old single mother who had immigrated to the United States from Ecuador in 2016. She lived with her parents and two daughters in a modest 3-bedroom home with a single bathroom in Cleveland's Cuddle neighborhood. Since December 2022, Kristel had been employed as a substitute teacher at a local elementary charter school known as Citizens Leadership Academy. She possessed a bachelor's degree obtained in another country. Records from the State Board of Education indicated that Kristel had consistently applied for her annual substitute teaching license from 2020 to 2022. Kristel had established an online connection with Henry Garcia, a resident of Ecuador. Their online relationship progressed, leading to a trip to the Dominican Republic to spend more time together. According to Garcia, Kristel later informed him of her pregnancy after returning to Ohio, as indicated in court documents. Kristel asserted that their relationship was long distance and that Garcia had been physically abusive during her pregnancy. Nevertheless, her daughter Jalen was born in early 2022. Social media posts revealed Kristel's fondness for travel, with images shared on Facebook showcasing her in various locations. Aside from these travel snapshots, her Facebook profile primarily featured self-portraits in different outfits, occasionally mixed with pictures of her children. While Kristel had no prior felony convictions, her behavior in the neighborhood had raised concerns among residents. Community members reported that it was not unusual for Kristel to leave her 1-year-old daughter, Jalen, alone at home.
It wasn't really her mom that was taking care of her, it was her grandma that was mostly taking care of her. Her mom always wanted to go out and just left her with her grandma and all that.
In August 2022, before Kristel's parents arrived, a neighbor agreed to care for Jalen for a weekend. However, this arrangement unexpectedly extended into weeks, with Kristel being unresponsive or avoiding contact. A published report quoted a neighbor saying they had to call Kristel, expressing their inability to afford milk for the baby and questioning what they were supposed to do. Eventually, Jalen began calling this neighbor Mama. Neighbors recounted instances of repeatedly urging Kristel not to leave Jalen unsupervised. They expressed that they had come to care for Jalen deeply, often taking her in when Kristel went to work, considering her like one of their own. These neighbors stated that Kristel frequently left Jalen alone. Another neighbor indicated that Jalen's grandmother was her primary caregiver, as her mother often wanted to go out. Neighbors also noted that Jalen was generally well cared for and showed no obvious signs of physical harm. A report from News 5 Cleveland stated that Children and Family Services had no record of previous involvement with Candelario. As the 2023 school year concluded, Kristel eagerly anticipated her favorite summer activity and planned a vacation. With her older daughter away with her parents, she scheduled a trip to Puerto Rico to meet her boyfriend from June 8th to June 11th. Surveillance footage from a doorbell camera showed her departing her residence on June 6th with a suitcase, having arranged a brief stay in Detroit before her flight to Puerto Rico. By all accounts, Kristel appeared to be thoroughly enjoying her vacation, reveling in the sun, the clear Caribbean waters, the nightlife, and the company of friends. On June 9th, She posted on social media from Isla Verde Beach in Puerto Rico, captioning it, "Time enjoyed is the true time lived." This carefree joy stood in stark contrast to the horrifying situation that was unfolding back home. Kristel returned to the continental U on June 11th but did not immediately go home. Instead, she spent several days in Detroit with friends. Upon finally arriving home, around 7:36 a.m. On June 16th, Kristel discovered her 1-year-old daughter alone in her playpen, unresponsive with sunken eyes. She placed a call to the police 11 minutes later, her distress evident in the recording. During the frantic 911 call, Kristel repeatedly exclaimed that her baby was dying and desperately pleaded for help, struggling to provide her address amidst her panic. She initially seemed unable to articulate what had happened, only stating that her baby was not breathing and looked white.
¿Cómo se dice cuando una persona se chupa, o sea,
kind of like,
yeah.
you know, kind of like,
Oh, like her.
The dispatcher attempted to calm her down and gather essential information. Kristel eventually identified herself and her daughter. Police and paramedics swiftly arrived at the residence, but nothing could have prepared them for the gruesome scene they encountered. Jalen was found deceased in a small playpen on a liner saturated with urine, feces, and soiled blankets. Emergency responders determined that she was severely dehydrated and pronounced her dead shortly after their arrival. Jalen's horrifying condition left officers profoundly disturbed, struggling to comprehend how such a tragedy could befall an innocent child. Their initial step in seeking answers was to question Kristel. During the initial questioning, Kristel mentioned that Jalen had vomited the previous Monday and Tuesday, claiming she had tried to control it with Tylenol. She also stated that Jalen had refused food and had no appetite since then, only consuming milk, possibly due to the vomiting. Kristel expressed that she had considered taking Jalen to the hospital because of her refusal to eat and apparent weight loss. She then described waking up that morning to find Jalen asleep, noting that the baby typically slept for 12 hours. Kristel recounted that Jalen had cried a lot the previous night, around 7 or 8 p.m., possibly due to pain. She described finding Jalen extremely dry and with a sunken appearance that morning, prompting her fear. Kristel's account of the events raised suspicion among the officers, who were as yet unaware of her extended absence. They were particularly troubled by her seemingly calm demeanor so soon after finding her daughter deceased, along with her descriptions of severe physical distress that warranted medical attention, which was never sought. Consequently, they decided to bring Kristel to the police station.
Was Jaylene? She was okay. She was okay?
During the interrogation, Detective Powell questioned Kristel about her trip to Detroit, Michigan on Monday morning. Kristel stated that Jalen was asleep when she left around 7 or 8 a.m. She claimed to have arrived in Michigan approximately 2.5 hours later and stayed at a Super 8 motel. She mentioned that she was working for Uber while in Detroit. Detectives questioned her decision to work in Detroit instead of Cleveland, where her daughter was. Kristel explained that she was also meeting friends in Michigan and took the opportunity to work as well. When asked why she didn't take Jalen with her to Michigan, Kristel, through translation, stated it was for traveling and that she planned to return on Friday to spend time with her. She also said she didn't want to stay in anyone's house. Detectives pressed further, questioning why she would leave Jalen alone given the child's apparent ill health. Kristel, again through translation, responded that she wanted to have a good time and travel. Following the investigation into Kristel's contradictory statements, detectives gathered substantial evidence, including Ring doorbell camera footage from June 9th that captured what they believed to be Jalen's final cries. Investigators concluded that Kristel had deliberately left her 16-month-old daughter alone in a small playpen for 10 days without food or water while she vacationed in various locations. The autopsy findings, which indicated starvation and severe dehydration as the causes of death.
The eyes were sunken and she had temporal wasting in her face. In addition to that, the skin showed markedly decreased turgor, present cakes on the fingers, the fingernails, the hands, the feet, as well as the soles of the feet. The same material was found on her lips, which were very dry and flaking, as well as in her oral.
Supported this conclusion. The medical examiner estimated that Jalen likely died between June 9th and 13th. Subsequently, Kristel was arrested on June 18th. A grand jury indicted her on charges of aggravated murder, 2 counts of murder, 1 count of felonious assault, and 1 count of endangering a child. Her bail was set at $1 million. The legal proceedings progressed rapidly, with an initial trial date set for January 2024, later rescheduled to February 26th by a judge. However, for days before the trial was to begin, Kristel accepted a plea agreement. By pleading guilty to aggravated murder and 1 count of endangering a child, the remaining charges were dropped. With no trial due to the guilty plea, her sentencing was scheduled for March 18th. At this hearing, Sergeant Teresa Gomez shared her profound thoughts on the case, emphasizing the tragic loss of young Jalen's life due to her mother's betrayal. Sergeant Gomez detailed the horrific circumstances in which Jalen was left alone for 11 days with no sustenance.
It was beyond horrific. It was revealed that the defendant, Kristel Candelario, left her own child alone for hours, which led to days, which led to weeks. This 16-month-old baby was left alone in a pack and play to fend for herself for 11 days with no food, maybe milk, the clothing she had on, and the diaper she was wearing. This baby loved her mother, she needed her mother, and her mother betrayed her.
Highlighting Kristel's choice to prioritize a vacation over her daughter's well-being. Kristel's court-appointed attorney acknowledged the indefensibility of her actions, describing them as narcissistic, selfish, and abhorrent. He emphasized that his statements were not justifications, but rather an attempt to provide some understanding of Kristel's background and struggles. He outlined her immigration to the U.S., her previous marriage and divorce, her relationship with Jalen's father in Ecuador, which turned violent during her pregnancy, and the father's subsequent lack of involvement in Jalen's life. He described Kristel as a single mother raising 2 daughters with the support of her parents, facing emotional and financial difficulties. The attorney then detailed a period in early 2023 when Kristel experienced significant health issues, including numbness, headaches, and weakness, leading to hospitalizations. She was diagnosed with anxiety and stress-induced physical symptoms and prescribed medications, including an anti-seizure drug and antidepressants. Her attorney noted that she stopped taking these serious mental health medications without proper tapering, which could have exacerbated her underlying conditions. He acknowledged the horrific nature of her actions regarding the trip, but suggested that her mental state at the time might have been severely compromised. He also pointed to her distressed 911 call upon returning home as a sign that she did not intend for her daughter to die. The prosecutor countered the defense's arguments, emphasizing that mental health issues did not excuse Kristel's deliberate actions. He highlighted her ability to travel to Detroit and Puerto Rico, contrasting it with her abandonment of her child. He presented disturbing details from Kristel's phone calls while incarcerated, revealing conversations about her vacation with no mention of her deceased daughter, indicating a lack of remorse. The prosecutor also noted a conversation with her mother about forgiveness, arguing that Kristel also needed to take responsibility for her actions. Before receiving her sentence, Kristel Candelario addressed the court through a translator, expressing her sorrow and acknowledging the immense pain caused by her baby's loss. She claimed she was not trying to justify her actions and that no one knew the extent of her suffering. She stated she asked for forgiveness from God and her daughter and believed she had been subject to negative influences. The judge, in delivering the sentence, stated that while Kristel might have forgotten Jalen,
the ultimate act of betrayal, leaving your baby terrified, alone, unprotected, to suffer what I heard was the most gruesome death imaginable.
the court would not. He drew a parallel between Jalen's confinement until death and the sentence he was about to impose. The judge emphasized that prison would at least provide Kristel with the basic necessities she had denied her daughter. Considering all the factors, the judge then sentenced Kristel Candelario to life in prison without the possibility of parole for aggravated murder.